Hello, and welcome back to Mirrors. Last time, David and Susanna traveled to a castle owned by some dark sorcerers, and then things went very poorly for David, but somehow they went even worse for the two detectives. Jesus Christ, what a way to go. Anyway, if you'll recall, last time we left off at a decision point that would branch off into two separate endings. In the previous video, we picked the option to open the door and confront the horrible truth of what David was at least indirectly responsible for, but let's see if denial will get him anywhere. David decided to go back. He was afraid that his nightmare might become reality if he entered the basement. He left in a hurry, as if to run away from the door, and made his way to the door that led to the courtyard. This might be the sorcerer's castle I saw in my nightmares, David thought. If Susanna is a sorceress like in my nightmares, she'll try to make me a murderer. Sorry, Susanna, but I must leave. David opened the door and stepped out into the courtyard. Stars dotted the sky. It was as bright as a full moon night. David walked out of the castle's gates and ran down the starlit road. Out in the wilderness, there were no landmarks. He had no idea how far he had run. Still, he had to keep going, as long as he could breathe. By the time the castle was a small silhouette in the distance, he heard the sound of a car's engine. Then, he saw headlights flickering in the wilderness. It's heading for the castle. Is it the sorcerers? Or is it the northern tribesmen? David looked for a place to hide, but there were no trees in sight. He could only run across the prairie, getting as far away from the road as possible. The sound of the car's exhaust was getting closer. The grass around his feet was illuminated by the headlights, and he could see his shadow in front of him. The car slowed down behind him. He could do nothing else. He stopped running, and the car stopped as well. A person got out of the car and approached him. It was a man. When he saw him, David started sweating. He looks just like the man that I saw in my nightmare. When they showed me a photo of the detective's client, David thought. Is he Jeff's? Why was he going to Susanna's castle? Once he came closer, he had no more doubts. Jeff glared at David with a look of suspicion. I was wondering what kind of fool would run alone in the night, and it turned out to be David himself. What are you doing here? Who are you? Jeffs. I lost contact with the detectives I sent to investigate you, so I came here myself. I certainly wasn't expecting to find you out here. I am a northern sorcerer at the service of the King of the North. The Devil King and the Dark Sorcerers are the sworn enemies of the northern tribes. You must die before the blood that flows in your veins is awakened. I don't want to fight the northern tribes. That's why I ran away. Let's stop fighting. I don't care about this ancient history. Do you think the Devil King would abandon his quest for revenge just because you want nothing to do with it? Don't make me laugh. You're all insane. You, Susanna, everyone. You're a bunch of psychopaths. Before David could push Jeffs away, he pulled out a dagger. Drop that thing. If you try to take my life, the power of the Devil King will manifest and you'll die. I'm serious. You won't scare me like that. I know more about the Devil King than you do. Don't underestimate a northern sorcerer. Jeffs thrust his dagger towards David. He tried to dodge, but his assailant was skilled. Then, he felt a sharp pain, and he cried out. While in agony, he thought he heard Susanna's voice. Susanna, help me. David, wake up! It's me, Susanna! David opened his eyes. Susanna's face was in front of him. She was holding his hand. What happened to Jeffs? Why are you asking about him? Greg and the others are on the way to capture him. If everything goes well, they should bring him here tonight. He wasn't sure what she was talking about, but then he realized he was lying in bed. What time is it? It's 4 p.m. You were sleeping like a log, so I figured I'd let you rest. Did you have a nightmare? What about Mr. Lands? He's on the roof with his wife, keeping an eye out for the northern tribesmen. David, is there something wrong? Does your body hurt? My body feels heavy, weak. I feel like crap. David finally realized that what he just saw was another one of his dreams. I get it now, David thought. After I took those pills, the detectives were killed. If they catch Jeffs, they'll kill him too. That's why I had that nightmare. I thought you'd obtained the powers of the Devil King, but it seems they weren't northern tribesmen. But Jeffs is one of them, I'm sure of it. His blood will definitely awaken the Devil King. The memory of the two corpses lying in a pool of their own blood made David feel sick. Are you alright? You must be weak because you haven't had anything to eat yet. I'll go fetch something for you. Wait for me, okay? Once Susanna left the room, David thought once again about the two dead men in the basement. Even though I didn't kill them directly, I feel responsible. If I were to cause more deaths, my heart wouldn't take it. But I can't leave the castle either. I can't face the northern tribes alone. Greg will come back with Jeffs sooner or later. What am I going to do then? David wanted to cry. He curled up into a ball under the covers. But then, the voice of King Croth spoke to him. David, why do you worry? You must simply follow your destiny. Once you obtain the powers of the Devil King, all of your worries shall disappear. Can't you see the pain in my heart? It's because I'm following this destiny that I'm suffering like this. Susanna and the Dark Sorcerers are ready to give their lives to protect you, and yet you only worry about yourself. If you fail to defeat the King of the North, the Northern Tribesmen will kill them all. They will kill Susanna. Susanna, the woman who chose to become a sorceress out of love for you. Are you willing to throw her feelings away out of fear? Are you not ashamed of your cowardice, David? If you cannot run away from your destiny, you should run headlong towards it. Lead the fight against the King of the North. Maybe I was wrong, David thought. Maybe I was only worrying about myself. If I'm destined to kill, then I should ready myself rather than curl up into a ball and cry. David made up his mind, and his worries disappeared. His frustration was quelled, and he was finally calm. King Hroth, I'm going to realize your ancient wish. If it makes Susanna happy, I'll annihilate the northern tribes, become the Devil King, and sever the blood of the King of the North. After his proclamation, David felt himself filled with the same power and confidence that he had during his concerts. His mind made up, David jumped out of the bed. In the dark room, the candles flickered.
What's the matter, David? You literally jumped out of the bed. Did you have another nightmare?
David thought his conversation with King Hroth had lasted only a few minutes, but looking outside the windows, he noticed it was night.
You fell asleep while I was cooking. What did you dream about this time?
I was scolded by King Hroth, and now I see everything clearly. I feel that by fighting against my fate, I'd only end up hurting you. If I'm destined to kill, then so be it.
Are you sure you won't regret it?
I won't. The moment I accepted my destiny, I started feeling the same way I felt during a concert. Strong. Confident.
I'm happy to hear that. Greg and the others are waiting for us in the basement.
Greg, you say? Ah, they must have brought Jeff's. What time is it?
It's 10 p.m. Are you sure you'll be fine? Jeff's is a northern sorcerer. A moment of weakness and you could die.
You have to trust me, Susanna. Don't ask me to run away now.
I'm sorry. Silly me. Having doubts just now that your mind's made up.
David and Susanna went down to the basement. Inside the room was Jeff's, hands tied behind his back, surrounded by Greg and the other dark sorcerers. When he saw his face, David thought back to his dream. He looks identical, he thought. This is the first time I'm meeting him in person, but he's just like the man I saw in my dream. How is that possible? Jeff stared at David in disbelief. How are you alive? I'm sure the dagger pierced your heart. So you were behind that nightmare. Susanna, he's a sorcerer. In fact, I think his sorcery is second only to the King of the North himself. Indeed, I am a northern sorcerer. The fact you survived my incubus curse can only mean you manifested the power of the Devil King. If only I had confirmed you carried his blood earlier. No matter. The King of the North will succeed where I've failed. Now tell me, Susanna, why have you brought me here?
We want you to tell us the King of the North's whereabouts. We already know you're not going to tell us willingly, so we're going to cast a confession spell. Besides, your spells are too dangerous. We're going to make sure you can never cast them again.
Your spells may have been effective on a pair of detectives, but I am a northern sorcerer. Do you really believe you will succeed?
You may be a northern sorcerer, but we are the dark sorcerers who have been guarding the bloodline of the Devil King for generations. We will not fail. Take the pills, David. We'll handle the rest.
I don't need them anymore, Susanna. I'm confident that I can bring out the power of the Devil King just by listening to your incantation. The moment I stopped fearing the sight of blood, I started feeling the power of the Devil King more and more. Sensing his overwhelming energy, Susanna dropped the pills and began chanting her spell. Jeff stared at Susanna and then scoffed at her. "What a fool you are, Susanna. You have failed to notice the change within my consciousness. As I thought, you dark sorcerers are nothing but buffoons." David's body was heating up from Susanna's spell. At the same time, he saw the heat engulfing Jeff's. Susanna ignored Jeff's taunts and kept chanting. "Even by borrowing David's power, your sorcery amounts to nothing. You will never be able to control my consciousness." Her forehead was beaded with sweat. She was starting to lose her nerve from her spell's lack of effect. "I've had enough. Have a taste of a real spell." Jeff chanted a spell, and Susanna's face turned red, as if she had walked into an oven. Unable to withstand the pain, Susanna stopped chanting. Gasping for air, she glared at Jeff's.
Only the King of the North can repel a dark spell. I'm afraid the King of the North is possessing him.
You finally realized it. Now let us put an end to this charade. Blood gushed out of Susanna's face, then from her hands, her feet. She collapsed to the floor. The other dark sorcerers started fleeing in panic, but the spell of the King of the North spared no one. In a matter of seconds, they were all lying on the floor, writhing in a pool of their own blood. Crying in anger, David jumped at Jeff's, choking him. With his hands tied behind his back, he could not resist. His consciousness filled with rage, David was seemingly impervious to the King of the North's death curse. His fingers gouged Jeff's throat. Jeff slumped down to the floor. Unable to speak, his life was leaving his body. David stared at Jeff's blood. Then he pointed his bloodied hand south, chanting, no, howling the spell. David, now the Devil King, could easily sense the flow of the spell of the King of the North. His counterspell, fueled by vengeance, followed the magical waves back to the source. He chanted his spell with all of his might. His figure overlapped with that of King Croth, a demon obsessed with vengeance. The next day, a large crowd had gathered at St. Radford's Church in Stratford, south of the castle where these events have occurred. They were mourning the death of Archbishop Mellis. A few days later, Alan, Andrew, and Martin were talking to the chief physician of the Heath Mary Mental Hospital in the suburbs of London. Give it to us straight, Doctor. Is David ever going to wake up?
Mr. David lived through something so traumatic that he was only able to cope by shutting himself in. It would take a shock of similar magnitude to bring him back. At this point, I cannot say when, or if, he will be able to leave our clinic.
Damn it. I can't even imagine what he went through during his vacation.
I saw the photos of the scene. It was straight out of a horror movie. If they told me it was a picture of hell, I would believe it. Knock it off, Alan. I lost 20 pounds since I saw the pictures. If it was me in David's place, I would have died of shock.
Reportedly, the police found 2 more bodies in the castle's courtyard. It's a complete mystery.
But tell me, what's going to happen to Elenovision?
Out of business until we find a new vocalist. But I have a feeling we'll never find someone like David. With that said, Elenovision won't break up as long as David's alive. We'll wait until he wakes up and climbs up on the stage again.
You said it. I'm a fan of his too. I feel if we were to disband, we'd never be able to listen to his songs again.
I feel the same way. Come hell or high water, I want to keep Vision alive. Anything to hear David sing again. His rage spent. David lost consciousness and never woke up. Was his mind unable to cope with the mighty powers of the Devil King? Or had the sight of Susanna's gruesome death been too much for his heart?